Hey everyone, me Kevin here. I have a breakdown of this morning's meeting between Democrats and Republicans. By the way, this is why I posted later. I was watching every bit of detail that I could and researching everything I could about this. I didn't want to just regurgitate nonsense old news from this morning because there was nothing to report as of like right now. So that's why you're getting this update a little later today. Again, I'd really rather not post than post just regurgitated information. I will also touch on rumors about the $2,000 stimulus check. So here's what happened. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Treasury Secretary Mnuchin, and Mark Meadows had the most productive meeting this morning in their own words. This has also now been considered the longest meeting that they've had as a group, which it lasted 3.5 hours, which to me sounds like a short workday, but okay. They said it was the longest and most productive meeting they've had. The president during this meeting was checking in hourly. He was not there. And Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy were also involved, though not present. Democrat leader Chuck Schumer, he's the Democrat leader in the Senate, said that Democrats and Republicans went piece by piece on every item. Finally, because it seems like over literally the last 2 weeks, all we've had is Mitch McConnell going, well, liability protections are a red line, and Democrats don't want to do a short-term bill. And Democrats going, we need the HEROES Act. That's literally all the negotiations have seemed like. Now it finally seems like they sat down and did a line-by-line negotiation, and in their words, made substantial progress. Chuck Schumer said this meeting was more productive, and here's the current time frame. Congressional staffers will work today and tomorrow, that is Saturday and Sunday, to take what was discussed in this Saturday morning meeting and then put that all together for review Monday morning. I believe this means that aides in Congress will put together the text that might work for both sides. I personally kind of think of it like a 3.5 hour meeting, going line by line of things, and a bunch of staffers in the room kind of writing things down and taking notes on everything. And then all the staffers kind of get together and, okay, what about this? What about this? And they basically try to piece together what's important. I imagine there are probably some lobbyists there as well, like, oh, we'll get out our typewriter as well. Anyway. This sort of drafting will happen again today and tomorrow. Leaders will then meet on Monday to review what was put together. Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi said that they will not meet halfway. They want a complete package. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin and Mark Meadows, the White House Chief of Staff, are willing to do a short-term bill and deal with other issues later. President Trump wants unemployment pay and an extension of the eviction ban. It is not known if stimulus checks are a part of the Republicans' temporary solution. However, we know that Democrats don't even care about a temporary solution. Schumer and Pelosi went on to say that when 1 million Americans need food, they won't go halfway and compromise to give 500,000 people food. They want a complete package. Pelosi thinks that this virus is like a freight train that must be stopped via testing, treatment, and tracing, such as through the HEROES Act, which they proposed 10 weeks ago and included funding and systems for all of those things. On a side note, it currently takes a minimum of 48 hours to get results from a COVID test, and that's a minimum. In some areas, it takes even longer. Mnuchin called this meeting the most productive to date. He says there's a subset of issues both sides agree on. He listed unemployment, schools, jobs, liability insurance, and the PPP. But he said he won't go into details on the negotiation in terms of what was agreed on. This makes sense. Usually when they're negotiating like this, they don't want to, start waving the victory flag because it sets up bad promises potentially to the public. But here's what I did is I put together a sort of a new little temporary flowchart just on, in my opinion, how this debate likely went. In orange are, in my opinion, the things that are being negotiated. Remember, Democrats, long-term bill. We've got food security, the SNAP program. This is like food stamps, right? Remember, dial 211 in your area to see if you qualify. State and local government funding. Democrats want $900 billion, and Democrats want a SALT tax deduction. These are things that are likely negotiable from this morning. Now, we did hear them tell us that the unemployment extension, money for schools, money focused on jobs, presumably like PPP and maybe some credits, tax credits, and liability insurance for worker protections. These things seem mostly resolved, which previously we've had an impasse on liability protections, but Steve Mnuchin just said that these are issues they have commonality on. So I wrote this, I assumed this, that and we know this because of what Democrats have said, we know that Democrats will only agree to liability protections with worker protections, like consumer protections, worker protections, and then have liability protections. And then Republicans are really gung-ho about just liability insurance, liability protections. But they've said that they're willing to do liability protections with worker protections. This really shouldn't say liability insurance. It should say liability protections. Okay, then what's up in the air? We don't know about this. We don't know about the stimulus checks. We didn't hear anything about that, but we know Democrats want that. And we know that Democrats say progress was made. On the other hand, Republicans, they want a short-term bill. This is an issue of negotiation, just something to kind of bridge the gap for unemployment and the eviction ban, and then deal with all of the other stuff, presumably checks and the PPP later. The negotiable item right now, or item up for negotiation, is obviously unemployment and the length of unemployment, and also the state and local government items, the other items that the Democrats wanted. We know that Republicans have just said, thanks to Steve Mnuchin, that the concept of doing an extension is already good on both sides. Both sides already agree on doing an extension. It's just a matter of how much and how long. We know both sides are okay with schools and childcare, jobs, again, liability protections, but liability protections, presumably with those worker protections Democrats want. And we know Republicans have already indicated that they're willing to do the stimulus checks, though again, we don't know if this is going to be in the Republican short-term package. But we already know the odds of a short-term package is very, very low. That's not what Democrats want. Democrats see the best opportunity for them to get the biggest bill passed is by passing a big thing all together. It gives them the most leverage. And it makes sense. It does seem like Democrats potentially are dragging their feet. Yesterday we had Mark Meadows saying, hey, we gave them 4 proposals and they just rejected everything. So this is that kind of state in a negotiation where it's like everybody kind of seems like a villain no matter what side you're on. Anyway, Republicans did make sure to say that a deal is not imminent, that there are still substantial differences, but this was the most constructive talk that they've had. Things that are unknown still are money for the EIDL program. Are they going to give us the $10K that was originally promised in the CARES Act? What about heroes and essential workers? Anything for them? The post office, this is probably not going to happen, money for the post office anyway, because remember, they just secured, I think it was a $10 billion loan from the Treasury Department. So that's kind of already been taken care of. Now, let's touch on what was said about $2,000 stimulus checks. And remember to get your life insurance in as little as 5 minutes via the link down below. And of course, get 2 free stocks with Webull when you sign up and deposit just $100. By the way, the YouTube course is still available. You could still use coupon code Larry to get in on the pre-sale. The price did tick up a tiny little bit, and it goes up again on August 7th. Senator Kamala Harris says that one-time payments simply are not enough. We need to provide $2,000 payments every single month to keep people fed and housed throughout the crisis. She says that she introduced a bill to do just that, and we have seen that bill, but she is renewing that discussion, or at least campaigning for that discussion today, at least on Twitter. She's also now seen as a top pick for VP by Biden, which might be why she's reiterating her stances on Twitter now, because you've even got Biden-Harris 2020 trending on Twitter. Right next to, of course, TikTok being banned by Trump, but that hasn't happened yet, but we will see on that. So there you have a thorough update. Hopefully you appreciated this. Again, my goal is never to regurgitate information. I know sometimes information can sound similar, but I promise to only post videos when I have actual updates. And to me, this was a very good update. Even though we didn't get every single little detail, this is good. If we can finally see progress, like maybe text of this tomorrow, and we could see how this actually ends up getting finally hammered out Monday and Tuesday, all right, then there's hope we can get something done before the recess coming up on August 7th. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Please consider subscribing, and we'll see you next time.